switching gears.
Back to comic books.
Back to
again.
comic books, or at least the level of comic books. In the continuing of quarantine, in the continuing of nothing in theaters right now, except that's kind of changing up a little bit. We'll get to
Yeah,
it.
me and my lady, and she wants us three to go see Tenet because it's going to be coming out soon.
I'm down.
Like
as long as the
early
theaters,
September-ish.
yeah, as long as the theaters don't do it right, and like I'm wearing a mask and everything. Don't want to be part of the
If it's gonna be like
the accelerationist gang.
Yeah, if it's going to be like wall to wall full, we probably won't do it.
No.
But maybe like a few weeks later or something.
Or a matinee or something. I'm not rushing at it,
that's
but
probably a better idea. We'll wait 4 months, or just go see a matinee, Rob. That's better. That's why you make the decisions.
It's together.
Not us united.
So in the meantime, not HBO, but Netflix has been putting out a few things, and so we watched The Old Guard and Project Power.
Yes.
And let's go ahead and talk about those.
What you want to talk about first?
Let's go ahead and talk about The Old Guard first.
Okay. You start.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So The Old Guard stars
So a comic book by Greg Rucka.
Greg Rucka, who's been kind of in the game for a while. I was trying to look it up at work, but our copies were sold out.
He's done some stuff of other stuff that he's written for DC, Marvel.
Yeah,
some really good
he's
stuff.
definitely written for DC. But it's essentially the story. It's got a great concept to it, which is that there are immortals on Earth who have been around for a very, very, very long time, and there's only a handful of them left, and they've essentially become a mercenary team that's sent in to do the jobs that need to get done.
Yeah.
Charlize Theron plays a real life, a person Andromache of the
Scythia.
Scythia.
Yeah.
Andromache.
And the rest of the guys are named Joe, Booker, and like Nick.
Booker.
They don't get cool names.
They don't get to be people from history, which would have been way more interesting.
Yeah, you can make one of them like Genghis Khan or something.
Yeah, or Guy Deries, or whether it didn't happen. And a young woman in Afghanistan gets killed in an operation.
Kiki Lane, I think is her name. The actress's name, I mean.
Kiki Lane playing Nile, and she gets killed in an operation, but it turns out she's immortal too, and is ousted and everything, and they all can tell when a new one comes
because
it's like, and they're like,
stuff.
what the hell? There hasn't been a new one in almost 200 years. Why now? Well, that why now doesn't really come into play at all.
Chiwetel Ejiofor?
Yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor is a grieving
man.
Yes, and a scientist, or
I think so.
He's
but he works for like the CIA and gives missions. I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of like
really vague.
Yeah, he's their point man, or at least is a suspected point man until they're betrayed. Because
spoiler alert for all this.
Well, this is all in the first like few minutes, like because they're like sent on a mission to like save a bunch of children in Sudan, and then they're all shot to death by.
It's really
it's a sting
to show the world their powers.
Right, so they just get slaughtered in a gunfight, and then kind of bloodlessly kill the rest of these guys in a way that's not very satisfying. Can you already tell what I feel about this movie?
Yeah, I think you might kind of be where I'm at.
Yeah, because compared to Project Power,
I may not have liked Project Power.
Interesting. I might have really liked it.
I think this movie has a great concept, but it's a lot of tell not show, and I didn't find a lot of the character arcs particularly gratifying. As dealing with immortals who have detached from everything and have very little concerns, I felt very detached from this movie by the end.
Me exactly too. They border on so many interesting things that they could talk about, and they just don't get there.
Nice action scenes, cool cinematography, but I feel like this is the thing with
sometimes it looked really cheap and boring at times, and very bloodless. Considering it's like I'll tell you, I'll get into it about the cinematography and about the fight choreography.
Yeah. lot of waiting for a thing to happen.
Right.
Like they'll throw a guy and then slide the gun to someone, and the guy will shoot the guy they just rolled over. And I'm just like, just shoot the guy.
Yeah,
it's
just
quicker.
shoot the guy.
It's more ruthless and efficient.
Use those cool swords and things that you have because she carries a battle axe.
That was Crusades. I like that they all have a weapon that is theirs,
that is related to their past and everything. Except they don't really
like
have
the
to
guy
use it.
who was a Saracen in the Crusades has I think like a curved
Scimitar
shamshir of some sort,
and
the other guy has a Templar sword.
Yeah,
just a
and they're
Christian
lovers.
longsword.
They met on the battlefield and everything. They could have gone more into that.
I hate to be SJW. That was the best part.
Yeah,
the series of lines about that. This man is not just my boyfriend. You fucking galoot.
Yeah,
like,
he's just like I fought
I've
with
loved this man for a millennium.
Yeah.
You piece of garbage. Like
because they're stereotypical. Like, what are you guys? Some
what are you,
gays?
a boyfriend? What are you, some faggots or whatever?
Yeah,
like,
and he just like grabs, just like you listen here, dude. Yeah, they were the best part, and I wish they could have flushed it out a little more.
Lots of okay acting. This movie is all just a
Theron's
a
great,
morass of
because
okay.
it's Charlize Theron. Dudley Dursley is the primary villain. He's the Elon Musk CEO, and he just turns into like just a comic book evil villain and has no depth to him. He's got like an evil sidekick and everything.
I'm gonna cut pieces off you to study you. Like, here's the thing.
His like reasons are like totally moral, but he's just like a corrupt asshole.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that I didn't find very convincing is full spoilers for all this. I feel if you are going to say there's these immortal people out there, maybe by studying them we could find something that would aid our health and make people live longer. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Ask them for sample tissue.
Yeah,
They'll give them
consent
to you.
to this and not be villainous. And
if you need more, ask them for more.
It just doesn't go in far enough to like
not enough lore,
not enough lore,
backstory,
and going to the fight choreography things, like talking earlier about stylization in superhero movies aside, in a post John Wick action world, you cannot have an action movie that does not have some stylization, that does not have some aesthetic to it.
That being said, there is a thin line between stylization and this is a dance number.
And it doesn't have to be, but this feels so dry compared to something like that, especially if you're coming from a comic book world and you're given so many possibilities, and it takes itself a little too seriously. And I'm bored. I found myself very bored by it.
I found
there's like a really twisted, dark part where it's like when she and the girl she met long ago, Quinn, they're exposed as witches and
I really liked that part. It's really awful.
Yeah,
like it's the idea
really
of it is
disturbing.
Terrifying.
Like because she's immortal and so she's thrown underwater in a metal casket,
keeps drowning and coming back to life forever until she eventually does die.
That's almost too extreme and dark for how dull this movie is. And I'm like, she shows up at the end when the other guy, the guy who betrays them, the French guy, who was kind of cool, but they just sort of exile him, which is kind of neat. It's like, we can never talk to each other again. We'll see you when we actually eventually die.
Yeah.
And he goes and she's there, and I'm like, no. This character needs to be like a maniac. This character needs to be like Jack the Ripper on steroids, running around.
There's strikingly none of that. And I was like, surely there's going to be an immortal, like a bad one, which I guess they tease at the end that she comes back.
Because it's like you have a character like that, and that's like a backstory for a character like that is like not even super comics get things like that, where if that character came out, they'd be a scourge to the world because they've been driven insane.
Yeah, like,
and she's like
unstoppable, superpowered.
It's good to see you again. And it's like, no. She would just be like covered in blood.
Yeah, that's the fun. I guess it's because like that's a funner concept where like you have unstoppable immortals and you use them in just kind of a. And it could be this is like how it is in the comic books. I bet the comic book's probably better because you can read more and learn about the characters.
And more stylization and more...
That too. There's a comic book called Leaving... is it Leaving? Yeah, Leaving Megalopolis.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's by Gail Simone, and it's about a meteorite crashes into the safest city on the world, is what it's called, because of all these superheroes that live in it, and it turns them into H.P. Lovecraft-driven insane murderers.
Neat.
And you have to get out alive. And there's one of them who is, of course, the head honcho at top, called Overlord, who is your Superman analog. And they become twisted horror versions of themselves, and it is terrifying.
That sounds really dope.
There's one where they're like, shh, they'll hear you. And it's like the super speedster who is just skin and bones because his metabolism is just eating him from inside, but he can't die. So he just like, he'll come flat. It's like, it's worse than like the A-Train murder from The Boys.
The Boys.
Also, that comes out soon. Excited for that. But like he just comes by and just like it's a massacre, and I
want to read that like now.
It's great. I'll let you borrow it. It's downstairs.
Please do.
It's great.
I want to read that.
There's
now.
the way they
because I love that concept.
Yeah, the way they even make commentaries on superheroes in it, and like one of them is like, oh, I used to read Overlord's comics back in the day before they made them all dark and gritty. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
But this is the epitome of dark and gritty.
Dark and gritty. Yeah.
And Gail Simone, like she is like. She loves the dark and gritty.
Yeah,
like it's even
she's
like
a really good writer.
Yeah, she's written like some really great ones. She wrote some Batgirl stuff that I really liked. But when I was reading this story, like at the very end too, there's like lots of little fun Easter eggs and like a big splash page of all the heroes before they were turned into crazy monsters,
Cosmic monsters.
and then after, and like they're twisted. There's one called Cupid, and he has like wings, and he's like the god of love. But now he has like a heart burned on the side of his face, and he's like his wings are all.
It
gross.
recalls to me the Kid Miracle Man deal.
It's definitely very reminiscent of that stuff. Doing something like that, where like you're immortal, you want to make like a big concept. Obviously, you don't want them just to be like murderers killing everybody because that's not what the story is.
Because also, like you get them talking about like mortality and like we do die. Like we've watched some of ourselves die. Like this is The Last of Us, but we don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But as far as like, I wanted more of that. Like we were there when there's a great scene in Dr. Sleep where Rebecca Ferguson's talking to the old guy, who gets killed, and she's they've been around for millennia, and she's like she's watched empires fall, and you've watched kings and queens murder each other. You sacked entire nations.
And now he's going like he has like ghost vampire dementia or whatever.
Well,
like that.
he's dying. Like he's actually like dying out, and she gives him this like, you were amazing, you were a god among men. I wanted more of that. Like we've seen everything.
Yeah,
we
and
were
also
there
one of them
in
is
World
not
War-
that old.
Yeah, like one of them
the one who I found the most interesting is only like 200 years old.
Yo, he's the French guy, right? Who was in the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, he is. Is he Nick?
Yes,
Nick. He's Nick.
Yeah.
No, he's Booker. Book. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he has the best acting scene where you'll watch the people you love grow old, and they'll want you to help them, and there's nothing you'll be able to do
because that happened to his son, and
and your love will be it will be a gross thing to them because you exist outside of it. And he gives a great little performance there, and I wish there was just more of that.
Yeah, I'm glad that I almost was just like the consistence of archetypes didn't feel consistent to me, like the characters didn't.
They're almost so bland it's hard to even call them an archetype.
Yeah,
like an archetype.
I want to really like Charlize Theron, but she's essentially, and she's good in it because she's always Charlize Theron, but she's kind of just doing
what the script tells her.
Furiosa. She's just doing kind of a Furiosa character.
Yeah, but even that character like has things she wants
and desires, and we don't know what this character
even if it's
wants.
all under the surface. It's at least it's interesting, and it's there's a sense of urgency. Whereas this one, and again, I've used this argument before, like the female action hero syndrome. When you make someone invincible, the action scenes are boring. And like the cool thing about watching her and Tom Hardy scrap for a gun is that you don't know who will get it.
Right.
But when I watch her and her invincible team of unkillable like mega men just destroy mercenaries, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Even if there's like when they first used their swords in the sting at the beginning, like that was cool. But I think there's a fine line.
But it's
between,
like every movie like that gets one of those scenes, and then everything else is just kind of like quick, sharp choreography that no one can see the punch hit.
Yeah, and there might be scenes that you could just get rid of, or you should have gotten rid of in turn of something else.
It was very long.
Yeah,
you could
and it's only 2 hours long.
Right,
it's not a long movie.
But compared to
it
something like
long.
we'll talk about Project Power, which is like only an hour 30. Like it goes by the clip.
I just felt that it was a little bland, and I want to feel like being immortal either costs you something or affects you in some way.
It needs to affect your psyche a little bit. Like these guys just cool.
Yeah.
Like they gotta miss something. Like they can't just be over it. I
don't understand the you have to leave your family immediately.
Well,
they won't notice for a few years though. That doesn't matter. You have to leave them now.
Because the whole thing is the character of Nile is who's an interesting character, but they don't do enough with her discovering things.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get to discover things; she's told things.
Also, she comes back from death, and the members of her platoon ostracise her for it.
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah, it's weird. They're just like, "Did you turn into a vampire?"
Yeah, that struck me as weird. It would have been better if like a smarter hand would have done that scene several times, where she just gets like a hand blown off and someone just sees it happen.
Yeah,
like that's
or they
better.
Get sent in another squad and she gets hit by a mortar or something and it doesn't kill her and they're like, "What the fuck is up with you?" And all of a sudden she's like, "I can't stay here. I can't stay here."
To bring everything back to Zack
more
Snyder,
action, more stakes.
To bring everything back to Zack Snyder in that interview on that podcast, one thing he said about young filmmakers or like people who are just starting out as filmmakers who have great ideas, and he always the biggest advice he gives them is shoot all your bullets. He goes, never save an idea that you think is cool so that you can maybe use it in a sequel or that you could. He goes, no, shoot all your bullets now. A better problem to have is having to make more bullets later and up the ante somehow than saving your bullets in order of pragmatism
and never getting to use them.
Yeah,
like
that.
Or they stay in the gun.
I feel like this is a movie that saves all its bullets.
Yeah,
there's just an idea of an unstoppable immortal who just could ransack a country and you may never be able to stop him. Now, and also you can stop them.
Yeah,
you can kill them and then tie them up and then they just wake up alive.
Or one thing that bothered me was, again, this goes into plot hole territory. This is not, don't worry about it. This is literally like, no, the world calls for it. What if you beheaded them?
Yeah.
You don't see you see like bullet wounds and wounds heal back. But is it gonna be like Tony Shalhoub in Men in Black when his head blows up and it just like regrows?
You're getting to the idea of like, oh, we can't be killed. Or what if I just like I cut your arm off?
Yeah. What if
like it'll grow back? What if I cut all your arms off?
Yeah. What if I
they grow back? What if I cut all your arms off and your head and like I cut your torso into sections
and
then I cut those sections into cubes and then there's just nothing. At some point, immortality is vague.
Yeah.
Now, like in Deadpool, they answer it like it'll grow back. It just takes a while.
Yeah.
But
I'm willing to believe that because of stylization.
I'm willing to believe you could kill Deadpool though. If you can cut his body into pieces and then cut his brain in half and then burn the brain, I feel like he would die.
It's the question of when you think about like
this is really gross
like
stuff that
Jason when you talk about like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, it's like, yeah, just cut their heads off, put it in a metal case, sink it into the ocean and burn the body, and I promise you he cannot come back at that point.
Yeah. Or no, like keep him in a big underground bunker and you just cut his arms and legs off.
We're really about separating the body, but I mean
it makes sense though.
Makes sense.
I mean, like we're pragmatists.
And the movie, again, like I say, my big thing is don't worry about it. But in a movie like this, it calls that into question because it doesn't go further into the lore to question it itself.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, no, then I am going to think about it because it's like y'all got burned as witches, and like, wouldn't they be like, well, that didn't work?
And it sets up the idea that big wounds take longer. To heal.
Well, or maybe it's because they're old. Well, he's not that even old. He's only like, but he does get gutted like open. Like we do get to see like he got like disemboweled. But
when did that happen?
During the raid, during that house raid where they where they kidnap the other two guys. He's like disemboweled.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that part.
Yeah,
I must have thought. I mean, like one guy gets like shot in the mouth.
Yeah,
during the fight. That was pretty. Like that makes me wonder. Like, how, I guess I'm willing. I guess it's it's the small steps fallacy. Is you'll believe a small thing but not a big thing. Mm-hmm. If their body is ripped apart, like I guess I can see them regrowing legs, or maybe like if the body is brought back together, it'll heal itself or something. But like I don't know. This
because also we don't know why it happens. There's no explanation. It's just like it just
that too. Like
we don't get.
I would have settled for a Hancock. We're angels, or we're like It's not explained,
and it's not necessary. But you don't give me a platter of things to be like, is it any of these? Are we God's chosen? Are we mutants? Are we aliens? What is it? And instead they're just like, we don't know.
We don't know. Nothing.
And we'll never know.
Look at the audience. You don't know either. Nobody knows. But you're watching this movie, so it doesn't matter. Like
again, maybe Rucka's graphic novel is a little more explanatory.
I'm willing to bet it almost have to be because it's such an interesting concept. If you're a creative writer, and I think Greg Rucka is, then he would easily just be like, oh, we'll get into that.
Because other than that, like if you don't have a lore behind
it seems
can
like
you imagine someone who's not a creative writer just like, I just want to tell a story about immortals And it's like, no, that sounds boring, dude.
It does. It can be boring if it's not done right.
Yeah.
A better way of doing like Immortals is because this is a movie about immortals. It's very interesting. Is Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Is about unkillable immortals that have lived for a long time,
and their angst and grief and trauma and their psychosis and things like that.
I think
poor Christina Ricci's just like, you fucking bastards, you made me into a child for life.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst.
Kristen Dunst, not Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci was in that movie. Do you even like Antonio Banderas has a line? And he goes, "I don't know, but I think I'm the oldest living vampire." And he's like 2,000 years old. That's, I mean,
we're the only true evil left.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that I want, but I definitely don't like the idea of like we're here to do good for mankind. Okay, fair enough. Doing good doesn't make you interesting inherently, but like. But then she says like, well, mankind doesn't need our help. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. We don't make a difference. But like, you actually do make a difference. I think a better thing would have been to just show not tell, her doing things, and then it blows up in her face and she feels like it's pointless. At least that would have been better. I don't even know if that's inherently a good idea structurally,
because they like have this really interesting thing where there's the one guy who's been,
because she's older than them. She's the oldest.
She's the oldest.
Probably at least 1,500 years old, maybe.
Byzantium era, like way back when.
And if it's ancient Greece, Andromache is a Greek name.
Yeah.
So that means at least around 2,000-ish.
Yeah.
So at some point, you feel like she would just be like, "Hey, you want to help us rescue these kids?" No. Do you want to come in? No. Like,
it would have been more interesting if they had been a group and had to go find her. Like she had retired like 500 years ago, and she's somewhere. She has answers, and then she's just like she's like Luke in jail. Like, no, of course not.
There's a great story I read called it's a vampire story, ironically enough, because they're the go-to immortal characters, called Blood Feud. And there's a story of a vampire who is in this world. He's the oldest living vampire, and as a vampire grows older, he grows stronger essentially, and he gets dark gifts is one of them and stuff. And he's the oldest one, but he's not like there's a vampire hierarchy of barons and nobles and stuff, and
which is what people like about vampires, like Vampire the Masquerade,
or whatever.
Is that there are all these different classes of.
He is a threat to the power structure because he is so old. They think he might be like 2,500 to 3,000 years old, older than like some civilizations,
and older than some.
But he's
hierarchies.
also and he's so powerful they think he may not be able to be killed, essentially. And he's lived so long that he's fought in the Crusades. There's a part where someone else goes like, "Jesus Christ," and he goes, "Was just a man."
Ooh.
And he goes, he goes, "He was just a rabble rouser in Judea." He still calls them what they were called eons ago. Because he has a dark period where he gets nihilistic and thinks there's no purpose to the universe. So he goes to Norway and lives in a cave and eats people. Like he's a monster to these Vikings, and he takes their children. He's done the worst of the worst, and he's done the best of the best. And now he's
a character.
Now he's a support group for new vampires who don't know how to deal with it. And he's so powerful. There's a scene where they try to assassinate him, and they send like this elite death squad of vampire headhunters. Like, we need him dead, and if you fail, he will kill us all. Maybe, we don't know. We don't know if he believes in violence anymore. And there's a part where they sit down and I imagine it as a movie, as like a bus passes and you see the light of the bus light up the inside of this cafe or whatever, and you see the shadow of these vampires around him. They're just in there waiting for him now. And he does the kind of the Incredible Hulk thing, is like, "You can still go home." And he goes, "This is not going to end the way you think it is." And he fights them, and they use all this technology of like UV grenades that just like scar his face,
because they got advanced
and they
blade level.
They're using silver and stuff, and they do set up in this world that there are things that could kill him, because he talks about when he lived in Norway and ate these people, and he went through his what he calls his like the darkest period, where like I didn't see sunlight for weeks at a time, and I just became the monster I thought I was, because I didn't think there was any point in life or death anymore after you've lived for 900 years. And they send a holy man in there, and he there's like, it's like a blade that was like dipped in the waters of the Sea of Galilee, and he slashes him, and he still has the scar, and it never healed. So there's things that even he doesn't know about.
Right, that he's like, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, and he goes, "Most vampires, when they live my age, they go crazy and they try to kill themselves, and usually in terrible ways." And he goes, "I just lived that 1 second longer, and I made it through somehow." It's a nice little.
I like this a lot, because there's another character I think about that I think going back to Watchmen is Alan Moore's character of Orlando in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
So Orlando doesn't show up in League until
I don't even know who this is. So I know the main
character that it's based on. Orlando doesn't show up in League until Part 3, Century, but they are first introduced. And I say they because Orlando changes gender every like 100 years. In the Moore story. So Orlando is several different Orlandos throughout lore.
Orlando Furiosa or whatever, the old book that was written like hundreds of years ago. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, but like the story of O and things like that. And Orlando,
does he change genders on purpose, or is it
he can't control it?
Okay,
it just happens at will, and it's like that's kept them alive for so long. Is like I was born at the time of Romulus and Remus, and they both had me as lovers, and then I was turned into a woman, and I was the lover of Sinbad, and then I was this, and essentially like you see Orlando.
Is it just I was a woman and then I had sex with? Is it a lot?
Yeah, it's the Alan Moore like I survived by fucking people, like, and then I became a man and I was Alexander the Great's lover and all that, and it's like I was the.
I love this. This feels like a squandered opportunity. In the vampire story I was talking about, the guy talks about how after he got out of his dark period and when he was attacked by this holy man, it scared him. He felt like I felt fear for the first time in hundreds of years, and he ran as far east as he could. He didn't even stop to sleep. Like he let the sun cook his skin, because the older you get, the stronger you get. Like younger vampires are easier to kill.
He's not gonna wither away.
But after like 900 years, you can kind of survive the sunlight if you're careful. And to this day, like the sun doesn't even mean anything. He sees it like I just wear sunscreen or whatever sometimes.
I love that.
But he walks so far, he gets to Judea and he meets Saladin in the Crusades.
Yeah.
And Saladin promises to show him God, promises to show him a reason to live. And he fights for the Saracens in the Crusades. And he fights against the Templars, and the Templars had holy relics. And eventually the word got out that the Saracens had an unbeatable killer, and it's how they took back Jerusalem, like Kingdom of Heaven style.
Right. The reason that was like. That was the end of, because I recently just read up a bunch on Roman history, and that was like the end of that era of Roman control, is when Saladin and the beginning of what would become like the Ottoman
follow
Empire.
the Holy Roman Empire, essentially.
Right.
Is when the Turks take that, or this is after they take it back or whatever, essentially. And the Christians pull out all the stops, and they go to the popes and all sorts of holy relics trying to kill him, and they just can't. And it's just like he just says it's dumb luck that I lived this long, really, because I should have died plenty of times. But now he's like an all-powerful Dr. Manhattan. There's a really gruesome scene when they try to assassinate him in that cafe where he reaches inside one of their throats and just rips out their guts or whatever. And I was like, because he just knows enough about their anatomy to know
exactly.
It takes too long to kill him. He liquefies silver and makes one of them drink it, so it just rots their insides out and stuff.
Brutal.
It's really cool.
Yeah, the one thing that
use your immortals better.
Yeah, because
Netflix.
Like, there's one thing I really enjoyed in the Orlando story, because that whole backstory is in a.
Should just cut out the old guard and talk about this.
Is this thing called Black Dossier, which is a midpoint in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where Mina Harker and Alan Quatermain have found the Fountain of Youth, and now they're in America in the 1950s. Or no, they're in England in the 1950s, and they're being chased by James Bond, essentially. Named
like,
Jimmy. He's Jimmy Bond because they didn't have the rights for James Bond, but
that's
it's James
hilarious.
Bond.
I love that.
And he's a villain. But the Black Dossier is a series of the League's like secret past. And in one of its Orlando story, and there's one part I really love, because they eventually become a character that like is in the Iraq War and things like that. And it's like, I'm back in the Middle East again, like I was thousands of years ago. The Crusades never ended. And at one point he's fighting in
also the
battle.
Crusades almost didn't end. They went on for hundreds of years.
Oh yeah, no, it's long time.
It's like the Wheel of Time. It went on for hundreds of years. The first three are dope, but like the prequels, I don't know about all that. Like it's one of those things.
But there's like a scene in like 1917 where Orlando is a man at this point, is fighting in the British Army in World War I, and he sees the legendary story where the ghosts of the the Longbowmen of Agincourt show up.
Yeah, it's where Henry, what's his name, defeated
the French.
The French, yeah.
And their soldiers that talk about the Angels of Mons, the Angels of Mots, where a bunch of British soldiers said they saw the ghosts of Longbowmen from Agincourt fight back the Germans.
Oh.
And it's portrayed in the scene, and one of the bowmen looks at Orlando and says, "Don't I know you?" And Orlando's like, "I don't even remember if I was at Agincourt anymore."
Yeah.
But this guy says I was. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool because that just at the bar, like he's like, "It's been so long. I don't remember I was at the Battle of Agincourt. That was 11 something around. That was a long time ago." But this ghost said I was. So yes.
I love the idea of ruthless killers becoming men of peace in the end. It's an anime trope that I enjoy a lot as well.
It's something I kind of want for one of my D&D characters.
Sebastian, he's the name of the vampire or whatever. He at some point he just decides that like we should blur the lines between human and vampire and tell them about us so that we don't have to kill them and eat them.
Yeah.
So he says like just ask them to donate blood, and then we just sort of once a month you have friends come over and they give you your blood. And he's building a hippie movement.
I love
kind
it.
of in a
I
way.
love it. It's kind of
but
like
they hate him for it.
Yeah, because it's like we want the hunt.
Yeah.
And he's like, the hunt's not worth it.
After a while, he goes, the hunt loses its edge after a while. It's like you know what he is? He's like the opposite of Dracula from Castlevania.
Castlevania.
That's like, cause he goes like, I want them gone because I'm just sick of it all. And he goes, I'm just sick. Like I got sick of the killing, so I just decided I'll try.
He's almost like what, not Hector, but one of the other ones is like, we need to keep a game reserve of humans to hunt.
Well, no, like they do it willingly. Like he goes, you bring in a human friend that you think you can trust, and you reveal the truth to them, and they spiral out, and then when they wake up, they spiral out again, and they pass out, and eventually they accept it, and he goes, we'd like you to willingly donate blood or whatever if you
to our vampire buddy.
Yeah, so we can like not have to kill you.
To
and
Clark.
He goes, yeah, and it's an interesting idea, and like this feels so. We should just move on to the next one, but like,
yeah,
at least
we have to have a nice conversation about immortals
tame.
and things like that.
Tame
Yeah.
is my problem with it.
It's fine. It's just boring, and it has no style to it really, and it's just
its stylization is it's rank with it, but it's also like it's generic stylization.
That's a good word for it. Again,
it's like from the Underworld movies.
Yeah,
like,
well, it's even brighter and more grayscale than that. It's like I said, in a post John Wick world, I need more neon. I need you to tell me what this world is.
And also, John Wick understands the value of getting your ass kicked. Can make something kind of better. Anyway, let's move on to PP.
Let's go into Project Power, which is a nice kind of break off from this. Now, Project Power is not based on anything.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I thought it was, and I was wrong.
It's
based off Machine Gun Kelly's agent, getting him lots of jobs. Yeah, he's in this movie.
Was he in it?
Yeah, he's the flyer guy.
Oh, was that Machine Gun Kelly?
I think so. His name is Coulson Baker in the movie or whatever.
Yeah, Coulson Baker. Oh, it is Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that guy gets around. He's in a lot of stuff.
This is stacked cast. Great cast here.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jamie Foxx, Rodrigo Santoro is in it. Last time I saw him was Xerxes, I think.
Courtney Vance.
Yeah.
Obviously Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah. And this does something this great actress Dominic Fishback, who plays Robin in it.
Yeah.
This is my kind of urban superhero story. So it's set specifically and very importantly in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And it is a very diverse cast. It feels both very stylized, very sharp, very slick, but also very real. The characters get fleshed out really nicely.
The thing I loved about it is that it is there's a lot of scenes that are set just like in the ghetto.
Yeah.
Of like a ghetto in New Orleans. And I was like, I appreciate a new eye on where these things take place.
It's more aware of now. It feels more real.
I don't even know that. It's just like after a while you get tired of like superhero stories that deal with the big and tall. Sometimes you want to get down in the gutter.
And you want it to be more realistic because this focuses on now the only thing I thought was kind of weird is it all comes from one person, and that's
is it Rodrigo Santoro's character?
No, it's Jamie Foxx's daughter.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Where it's like that's where it originally started from, or something like that. So
I don't know if it started from her, but she got the powers for good because her dad had it when he had her.
You don't get to see it too much, but it's this kind of like she can give life to things.
Yeah.
And I was like, it reminded me.
There's a vagueness to this movie that I didn't fully appreciate. To be frank,
it goes between vague and being very on its face.
Yeah.
Like, because
and I don't know
Machine Gun Kelly plays one of the coolest fire villains I've seen in something in a long time. Like,
I liked that, and a lot of the rest of the powers, I was like, that's fine.
I appreciated that it was kind of leaning into like different animals kind of thing. I do wish they could have been a little more animated about that.
I think you don't even have to just justify. That's a waste. That's what I call a wasted scene. Like,
where it's just like this one has the power of a dung beetle.
Like, who cares?
Well, the special effects, like the guy who's essentially like a gecko, like can just like chameleon himself.
Yeah,
he looked really cool.
That was cool.
That was a cool effect.
I think I liked this movie better than I liked The Old Guard.
Oh, I certainly did.
At least because
I actually recommended it to some folks.
At least because the characters are a little more unique instead of all being like a bland. I don't want to say bland, but they're all just kind of like mostly stoic.
Yeah, they all have arcs. Like they start as something and they become something else by the end of it. And you see the little things that cause them vulnerabilities before they become the big things. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a cop, but he's also a cop who's an addict and is like, you know, he's doing something that's immoral, which is, you know, he's both protecting this teenage girl, but is also like
who sells him the drugs that he is tasked with stopping in a way.
And of course, it's revealed there's a conspiracy behind it, which is kind of whatever. But at least at the beginning, his corruption is personal. Like,
yeah.
and he does such a good. It's been a while since I've seen Jogo in something. Like, it's really nice to see him.
He's been
this.
Gone for a long time.
Yeah, and it was very nice, refreshing to see him play a very real, kind of grounded.
Yeah, I like him in this movie. I think I like all the main characters. Like
at first, I wasn't sure if I would like Jamie Foxx, other than it's just Jamie Foxx, and he's a lot of personality.
He tries to switch between menacing, "I'll kill your mother," and "I'm just a dad who loves his daughter," and I don't think it works as well as he thinks it does.
Now he makes it work because he's that good an actor.
I think so.
The story, I don't know if it makes it work because he's essentially trying to like border that thing between Jamie Foxx and Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I never believe that I'll kill your mother. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't believe you.
Like Denzel Washington Training Day, he says that, and I'm like, I believe him.
Yeah,
but Jamie Foxx, he's doing the Denzel like delivery, but you're like, no, this guy's not a bad guy.
I think the script it gives him like two conflicting ideas, and they should have leaned harder on one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the plot essentially is that
drug gives superpowers for 5 minutes,
right? And it's becoming an epidemic.
And like a drug, I think you build up a tolerance. This is what I would have liked to have seen. I don't know if they make this a thing. They kind of slightly imply it with Machine Gun Kelly, but that you can build up a tolerance to it and need to take more to get a better high / keep your powers.
And also, no one knows immediately what powers they could get. They
could
become
die
a rhinoceros person, or you could explode.
Yeah.
We do see that great one guy puts it in, just blows up, and I'm like, neat.
I think that this movie and The Old Guard share a similarity in the sense that they are great concepts that are not executed nearly as interesting as I would like them to be.
That's fair. I think for me, this concept was delivered in one of the better ways I've seen it.
I think this is a better movie. I think that after a while, it's again like the don't save all your bullets thing. I feel them saving bullets, and also I felt some of the powers are a tad generic. I would like to see something really unique. I'd like to see people who use these powers for something more than just like
petty crime.
Yeah, like someone the idea of someone stole from a bank. I believe someone would do that, but they would fail and get caught kind of immediately or whatever. I like that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, of course, because he's our white knight character. He gets the super strength and invulnerability kind of thing.
Yeah, which is displayed really cool when that guy just assassinates him and the bullet just kind of
he doesn't off. The guy doesn't even check. He assumes it just went through his brain.
And I don't think even Joseph Gordon-Levitt knew it was activated. Like there's tension there.
Yeah, there's also a vague amount of how long does it take for the powers to kick in.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen like, again, the immediate place my mind goes to, and this movie is pretty R-rated, so I don't think like
it's got more of an edge that I liked, and it's got more body horror, and it's got a lot more. I was more satisfied with that than I was like, all right, this has got a little more grime to it.
I agree. Like when the guy turns into a big man, and just like he's like a troll, and then he does
turn into like a giant. Isn't it Rodrigo Santoro?
Yes,
turns into a giant troll man.
Yeah, and I just felt that it was I was like, that's generic. I was like, just he grows big. Growing big is at some point is a double-edged sword because you grow big and then you could just like kill everything in a
But how can you get through the door?
Yeah, that too. Like you would eventually. Yeah, like what happens if you grow big but like it's all concrete? Does your body just does your
Well, there's an
spine
interesting thing, like when you just turn into jelly then because he didn't think it through. He
Yeah.
got too caught in adrenaline, which you see that like Machine Gun Kelly's character Newt, you know, he just chucking these things down, it just incinerates him.
Yeah.
But for the time being, he still was really powerful.
I would have liked the idea that these people, when they take it, they get like you can get some legit superpowers, like world mayhem causing possibly superpowers.
Well, that is an interesting,
Which is
sort of
kind of
deal.
what Jamie Foxx's is, but he passes out by the end of it.
Right.
What I would have liked to have seen, if we're gonna really go for broke, instead of like the New Orleans Police Department, is there's the guys in the suits that are at the crime scenes, and they're possibly that never comes back.
Yeah.
it's a real throwaway.
It's just
And
like the
it's-
government's involved, but it's like
Who are these
ooh.
idiots?
Yeah,
They
the
show up
final-
at Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
The final boss, the woman who's behind it all, I'm like, I don't really know who this person is, and I don't really
Lame.
care.
Yeah, like it doesn't take its concept to its.
Yeah, keep
to the most
Rodrigo
interesting.
Santoro. You've got like make him
Make
a
him
bigger,
and Jamie Foxx. The big thing is you want Jamie Foxx to use that mysterious power you've heard about, which is just like exploding energy.
Yeah,
It's
he can incinerate people.
Yeah.
He's got the power of a pistol shrimp because he mentions the whole thing about the pistol shrimp thing.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen like him shooting this energy at like an invulnerable steel man.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool who's gonna like pull it out here. What I would have liked to have seen, because this is it immediately makes me think of what happens when you give it to somebody and he just like goes to the local police station and kills all the cops. Like
Raise
that,
the stakes. Raise
Yeah.
the stakes.
yeah, and it feels too subdued for its own good, too sensible for its own good.
Well, I think it also has this sort of warm heart to it as well. Like it goes up to a point, because the one thing I did like about it is there's another way this could have done, specifically with the character of Robin, who's our protagonist, who's a young girl who knows the system is matched against her. She's not going to succeed in school. She's probably going to be seen as a criminal. She's already a drug dealer. Things are not looking
She's made
good.
so
for her.
much money. When she opened up her thing, I was like, "There's like so many stacks of cash."
Yeah, she's good by the end of the movie, but her situation is a great protagonist beginning. Like, she has nothing. What I love about this movie is it would have been so easy for her to just get a power, a generic power, like Songbird or something like that. And instead, they're like, no. It starts as this cheesy, the power's in you, but they don't corrupt that by then giving her a superpower. She stays her
A
throughout.
YA novel would have given her
Yeah.
her power. And
Like,
it's
like
exactly
the power
what
would
they
have been
needed.
like Songbird or something.
She
or
can shatter the glass,
shatter
like
glass
Black
and things with
Canary
her,
or whatever.
or do like literally like liquid swords with her rap and things like that. And
Yeah.
which kind of sounds dope now that I thought about it.
No, it sounds dumb. I hate it.
I was like, oh, kind of like
I don't
kind of
wanna
like a
see it.
Wu-Tang Clan power.
I think that like
But they didn't do that. Instead, they kept with that heart, like your power is you, what you do so well. Because obviously, all these other powers people are getting that are real powers are corruptive and dangerous and degrading on them.
yeah. I think that like seeing the scene with Machine Gun Kelly when he goes on fire, that was the part of me where I was like, this is the part that I liked. It was the coolest, something interesting, the way fire manifests itself. It burns his skin too, which is kind of like, oh, you don't think about like, could there be an aftermath to
Yeah,
this?
he's not Johnny from the
Johnny Storm or
Johnny
whatever?
Storm. Yeah, he's not the Human Torch.
Yeah.
where it just burns exteriorly and he gets taken off. Like, I'm fine. It
feel-
reminded me of like BioShock.
Yeah.
like the syringes in like BioShock Infinite and like turn their hands into bees and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I that makes more sense to me. I liked that approach to it.
Yeah, I don't know. By the end of the movie, I just felt like it's a good ideas. It's some nice performances. It just doesn't ever quite come together as a whole thing that I'm like, I love this.
I agree with that. I think because it was so much more entertaining and so much more fulfilled and so much more
I agree it's
earnest.
better than the old guard because
Yeah.
it's at least it's
I care.
it maybe doesn't know what it wants to be, but it knows what it's not.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And I think it knows a little bit about what it wants to be. Like you said, I think they could have fired off more of those bullets altogether, because
Yeah.
it finishes off in a way that's like, this doesn't need a sequel. Like it's nicely wrapped up, and I appreciate that they don't have the audacity to be like oh, there's more to come. And I'm like, I wouldn't mind seeing more of this world.
I think
Like you said, there's so much potential.
you
packed
need
in.
to have a person who takes the power and becomes, because this is the thing, is like the powers are just enhanced enough to where you could maybe subdue a criminal really easily or punch some concrete. The only one who has a power that made me be like, that is dangerous, is Jamie Foxx.
Right.
Like there's like the bone guy felt so generic. I was like, I've seen this in other movies.
Well,
Like
he's just Wolverine. At that point.
like
but they do have a sick fight though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And the prosthetics look great. Like that didn't, that was really.
I love how he kills him with the bone.
Yeah,
it was cool.
That was neat.
It
was a lot gorier.
What you need is like
Jamie Foxx does put like that guy's chin through the fountain, and it just comes out as blood. I'm like,
screenwriting. Screenwriting cool. 101 says, just like in Deadpool 2, where he goes, it's a big heaping helping of foreshadowing, and he looks at the audience when they see the big. That's where we keep Project X. We don't go in there or whatever. He's too dangerous. You need a guy that they keep in reserve. They try to do it with the big beard guy who just is nothing.
Yeah.
He goes out like a real bitch. Like, I'm just saying. But like, you need a guy.
He turns into like a rhinoceros.
There's like, we have a serial killer who we just keep in exchange for like, this is if shit gets real bad, and you feed him and he becomes an unstoppable juggernaut.
Yeah.
Oh, and something's in his DNA that makes it last for 45 minutes.
Yeah, we found something. We experimented on him. And
then Jamie Foxx has to really think about how he can beat this guy, because you can't kung fu your way out of it. No. You gotta that's something I would have liked to have seen. That is partially a question of budget and what you are given to do,
and because it was because it's not based on anything, it's just a conceptual story. It's completely original.
Like all conceptual stories, its concept is interesting. Right. The execution seems to have just
it's like they didn't want to go all the way with it, and it's like, but you get some really interesting stuff, like that poor woman gets put in the container and is doing like frost powers, and then the thing shuts down and you watch her just freeze to death.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that was good.
I was like, this is showing me really, this is the kind of stuff I love in a superhero sort of story where superpowers are like wide ranged. Is that
I thought they were so narrow.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but
when I was watching the Umbrella Academy, I was like, that's wide ranging. Yeah. I'm still working my way through that, by the way. I'm on episode 3, and I'm very much like, let's get to some stuff, damn it. But that felt wide ranging to me. Those were interesting. This is just like, you get strong, you get big, you get cold, you get hot. It's just kind of. I
guess in the context of a world where there aren't superpowers.
Oh, if that was something that existed today, like in our world, I'd be like, that is wide ranging. But like for me, knowing what the genre is, it felt like must you aim so small? Aim a little higher.
I'm imagining that's because they wanted to reach to a base audience, like
sure.
But I mean, I really did enjoy it though. Like
me too.
I enjoyed the setting. I like that New Orleans setting where it's always like
I like the phantom rap she does where she imagines herself telling off the teacher, and then she's like, "Oh,
yeah." I was like, "No, she's not that dope."
I felt like at first I was like, "This is ridiculous." I was like, "Oh, that's hilarious." She has a phantom dream or whatever
about like real
telling off the douche. English
the douchey teacher who's just like, if you can rap, I'll give you a C.
Yeah.
I just liked I liked the characters a lot. I liked the story. It was well performed.
They're at least interesting.
It's enough that I can recommend it to somebody and say, this is a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I liked it.
Yeah.
I want.
I will say, like, it's nice. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is. I like the scene where he. I think the guys in the suits should have been written out of the movie in exchange for more cool
but the scene where he goes to save her mother, and he's just like, baby, who are these guys?
You think I can't be in love with an older black woman or whatever? That was good.
And I actually like the scene where he's talking about the pistol shrimp to the guy, because he's like, you don't know what power I'm going to have. And he essentially rolls a huge intimidation check because he lets the guy go. He's like, I don't know if this guy's gonna be a pistol shrimp or not.
See that kind of didn't work for me, because I would just be like, just shoot him in the face.
Oh.
Yeah, like that. After some point, like,
well, I guess they're like, we got to keep him alive or whatever.
I wanted Joseph Gordon-Levitt to either be slimier or to be more noble, and he never quite lands as either. But I still like him because I think he's just a good actor, and he reads the material well,
and he feels believable. Like, it's not like, oh, handsome ghost of Gordon-Levitt just hanging out in New Orleans. Like, no, he's got the dialect, he's got the look. Like, he works for me in this.
Do you want to wrap this up by maybe talking, like, I think there's a weird thing about Netflix films.
There's something I noticed in the both of these at the beginning,
that they're just they're like interesting concepts, and they're giving like new filmmakers chances to do an interesting thing, but they never quite land
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
I think this lands a little stronger for me, but that's just my sensibility.
But I also said Bright landed really well, and nobody agreed with me. I still want that sequel. I want the medieval Dark Lord to come back and fight Will Smith and his orc friend.
And is that Joel Kinnaman?
No, that's Joel Edgerton.
Joel Edgerton.
The better Joel.
The wrong Joel. Yeah. Like, there's something I noticed at the beginning of both these movies is like that the titles just kind of pop up just to get it out of the way. There's no like there's no like feeling of build up. It's just like, you are now watching this. Now watch the movie.
It's very
informal.
Less Project Power, more the Old Guard, but all of them are still kind of like, the filmmaking is very functional.
Yeah.
And not very artistic.
That's what the Old Guard bored me, because it felt so
clinical.
It felt like if you took out any number of scenes and re-edited the trailer, I would think it's like a movie trying to be like Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I didn't know that it was a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Or a comic book movie.
And I think that like you either need to go all in on one or all in on the other, because the stylish fight scenes don't make up for it. Like as I was watching, they're going to meet Chiwetel Ejiofor and get the thing, and the guy has the sniper rifle on him and stuff. I felt that there's this little, and this is going to be like seem like a nitpick, but it's going to be like the question of being economical with how much film you use and where you choose to edit to what. So they're walking towards him, and there's like a 40-second chunk of just B-roll of like kids playing and stuff. Yeah. And part of me goes like, if you're going to go for like a clinical movie, cut all this stuff out and just keep it to your main characters, because it does that a couple of times in the movie.
You don't have to do this much window dressing.
Or I would have been like,
it doesn't really matter where you are.
Or I would have been like, be more artistic. Yeah. Like there's a great thing I love about like in a movie like what's a good example? A movie like Wonder Woman has this great scene where Steve dances with her as it snows, and then they go upstairs and it cuts to black because they have sex or whatever. But like I felt that was a nice artistic touch of like, you take a scene and you make it look real pretty or something. Man of Steel does it great when they're like, Clark is sitting on the truck and the woman is saying it was an act of God, and he looks outside, he sees the swing dangling, and then you see like a close-up of he puts the coffee pot, grabs his coat, opens the door, and you see like close-ups of like wagons and butterflies. Really beautiful photography.
But it's good editing. It's good sharp editing.
Too. And it lets these scenes,
I feel like in some situations, because editors are the real backbone of all films that get released.
Kinda. And I feel like these movies are edited in such a functional hot way. Just like their fight scenes.
No one is seeking this movie out. We have to give it to people, and so it has to be as consumable as possible.
They're all style and no substance, and it could be that these are just new filmmakers trying to get a grasp on a new thing.
But with the Old Guard, like I was looking it up, this director has been working on things for a while. She did the Basketball Diaries and Love and Basketball, and not the Basketball Diaries.
That's so long ago. My God.
She worked on several.
Gina something.
Yes,
something like that. And
then this movie feels so weirdly clinical.
Also, Greg Rucka wrote the screenplay for this movie, for The Old Guard.
That happens.
So I'm like, I have a tough time imagining that he is.
It's Gina Prince Blythewood. Yeah. She did Love and Basketball, The Secret Life of Bees, like these kind of more prestige.
Isn't The Secret Life of Bees about the spelling bee and Lawrence Fishburne? Or is that Akilah and the Bee?
That's Akilah and the Bee. Okay. Secret Life of Bees was a novel.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
By Kim Monk, or Sue Kim Monk rather. But
yeah,
but yeah, like
they feel clinical.
Feels clinical. Like maybe this isn't a genre that is for you.
I don't necessarily know if that's even true. I think maybe it's just like when you're writing a movie, you're making choices in a way, because you're choosing like what the story is going to be about, and like. Or maybe it's just the fact that like Project Power was a little bit better because like those scenes of us seeing New Orleans was like, oh, we're set in
New Orleans was part of the character.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter.
New Orleans PD is in the movie.
Like New Orleans is the setting, so the feeling is New Orleans. Like when like I said, one of the things I liked about it was all the shots of the pier, and there's constantly like lightning in the background because it's on the coast, and it feels sweaty. It feels New Orleans, but it's not the New Orleans you'd see in a Hollywood action film.
Did you
where
like the Clint Eastwood jokes that he's doing? Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Yeah.
Those are okay.
But it's like if New Orleans was in something else, you'd be in like Mardi Gras and in the in the quarters and in the French Quarter and all that. Instead, it's like, no, this just feels like a city.
Yeah.
But it still feels distinctly New Orleans. And I'm like, that feels so much more real and colorful and
Like,
interesting.
When I watch those movies, both these movies, they just feel like wide shot, medium shot, wide shot, maybe one close up. And I was like, one of the things I like about I'm not a filmmaker, but when I'm doing my music videos with people downstairs, I love to like mix up as much different material as I can.
Yeah.
Getting real close on things or getting real far away from something to get a different perspective.
dynamics.
But they all feel so like, it was kind of like me when I watched like, partially because I just don't like Bryan Singer anymore, but like when I watched Bohemian Rhapsody, I felt like it's such a clinical biopic.
Yeah, I did not like that movie because
Like I liked it, but I was just like, it feels plain.
yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody was just
It makes me look at people like, the reason I liked Bright was because, it's on Netflix, but at least it has character and it feels like someone
cinematic.
Going for something.
right. Or a good difference talking about Bohemian Rhapsody would be Rocket Man,
Who ironically, the guy who directed that, I can't remember his name. So Bryan Singer was kicked off of Bohemian Rhapsody because he just didn't show up to set for like a day or something. Probably because he was being investigated for sexual assault crimes.
because he's a notable creep.
Yeah. But the guy, they brought him in to finish the last 2 weeks of photography, essentially.
Oh wow!
And then
okay.
he would later go on to direct
Rocket Man, which
like
is,
a year
has
later.
so much more of a vision and so much more stylization.
It's so
and
interesting, and I would say like style is not a bad thing. Not style doesn't mean
I'm fine with style.
Yeah.
I'm fine with aesthetic. Like some of my favorite directors do that
what's
unashamedly.
the last movie with Matthew McConaughey, the Guy Ritchie movie,
not the Englishman,
Charlie Hunnam.
the Gentleman.
that movie is all style, and it
Yeah,
carries
it's all it's got.
Even just like the way it edits and stuff, like that made that movie better. And style would have made these movies better.
Yeah, and again, I still say that at least that sprinkling of style in Project Power showed the leaps and bounds. It was better.
I think it
than
gives it
Old Guard.
that extra seasoning that just puts it over. Whereas the Old Guard, for all of its clinical
so bland.
ability, it just feels perfunctory.
Yeah, and you're talking about two very different, interesting things in accelerated fiction of like immortality, superpowers, and both are not hitting the full extent. Though I will say that Project Power hits it stronger.
Yeah.
While I think that
The Old Guard
just
I never thought
falls flat.
Like, if you tell me like this is a movie about immortal warriors and it's going to be filled with death-defying fight scenes and a global conspiracy, that sounds interesting. But like your movie doesn't
feel that.
Doesn't feel as interesting as that.
Again, it feels like scenes from like B-roll of Zero Dark 30. It feels like just a spec ops team going to clear stuff up, and I'm like, cool, okay.
Yeah. There is an X factor to filmmakers, and you can tell watching a good filmmaker. Like sometimes, like when I was watching the scenes of Batman Begins versus the new Batman, I was like, man, filmmaking has come along. Even watching like Christopher Nolan's new films, they look so much better than his old films. Partially because technology has come better, but also because like style is something that you learn over time, and sometimes it's an X factor that some people have and some people don't.
And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's financing, sometimes it's who you get to work with. I'm checking the directors for.
Like Brick is a great example. It's not a movie that I love, but it's not all style, but the style is kind of what helps that movie in a lot of ways.
Here's some. Oh, this is interesting. So we talked about the director for. We'll end on this. We talked about the director on that, but the director for Project Power, originally it was two people. It was Ariel Schulman and Henry Joost. Catfish, the documentary, the fake documentary sort of deal.
Fake documentary. I don't know what that is.
Catfish.
I don't remember.
It's about. Well, you've heard the term catfishing.
Yeah.
It's that started it. Is like this guy thinks that he's going to go meet this girl, and it turns out to be something else.
Oh, okay.
And they stylized it in the trailers like it was going to be this big shocking thriller sort of deal, and I think it was just kind of like whatever. They also directed two of the Paranormal Activity movies and the film Nerve.
Nerve is good.
With Emma Roberts and Dave Franco.
But at least Nerve knows how to up its stakes.
Well, it also got the full deal, but that you could kind of
also, it's based on a novel.
That's right. It's
and
based
the
on a
person who wrote the novel helped write the script and stuff. Like little things like that can matter. It's like having the person close to it. Yeah.
Long story short, we'll wrap it up now. I do recommend Project Power. I thought it was very fun and entertaining and had a lot of substance to it. And but I see what you mean on that, and it would have been nice to explore that world a little stronger.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't seem like it sets itself up for a sequel. It's amazing how how neatly everything wraps itself up. Like we got the daughter back, the evil corporation is dead, and credits. Like no setup for a sequel.
Money gets left for Robin. Like life's gonna get better.
Yeah.
I appreciate. I feel like movies that end with no sequel hook these days are more confident than films that do end with a sequel hook.
Well, in this case, they are.
Yeah.
We'll see when the Snyder Cut comes out, because I'm guaranteed they're going to end with like and then Darkseid steps through a boom tube or something. Like, hopefully, we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see. We'll see more next time when we come back to the movie date.
Yep. This has been the Movie Date with Rob and Matt, a podcast for people who like movies but don't want to be too smug about it. You can check us out on Facebook and on iTunes and Podbean and the free Podbean app, and a lot of our main stuff's on YouTube. We have some bonus episodes coming up.
Get them out on YouTube pretty fast.
Yeah.
Check us out, like I said, on Facebook. We'll be posting these as they come out.
Yeah.
And
bye.